Hello everybody, hello everybody. Let's get this thing rolling. Make sure it's actually online. Perfect. Alright. Test the chat. I'm just going to throw up the announcement real quick here. Perfect. Alrighty. Hey everybody, if you're just not tuning in, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes, make sure we actually have time to get everybody in here. Then we will start rolling along. I think this will be a good episode for a whole lot of people. I'm excited for it anyway. Alright. It appears we have a special guest with us. We have a cat that's here to watch the stream as well, so it'll be a good week. Sure this went up. Okay, perfect. Just gonna give it a couple minutes, guys, to make sure everyone can actually get in here. I bet a whole lot of people are probably out enjoying the holidays. I know I am. I know I'm also trying to stay warm. So I totally get it. If we have a lower turnout of people today, we'll likely end up picking this up again later on and re-speaking about all this stuff. So if you are not here currently and you're watching this back, or if you are watching this recording back and you want to try to attend one of these, given that this is possibly, if not for sure, the biggest concepts from the Arsenal Advantage and Adjustments playlist. This is definitely the most eye-opening episode and the most eye-opening thing that we've gotten to discuss about. If you are not able to be here for this stream, don't worry. I will likely redo this exact same stream again at a later point because it's the holiday season. I figure a lot of people are more than likely going to be busy. So we will tackle all of that as we kind of go along here. We'll see what the turnout is. I don't suspect it'll be a very high amount of turnout. So yeah, I mean, if we don't get a high amount of turnout, I'll just redo this stream again. But I'll still do it again this time for those of you that are able to tune in for the time being. So I'll give it just a couple more minutes to make sure we can get everybody in here, and then we'll roll along. Hey Debbie, how are you? Hope you're having a very folly, jolly Christmas. I know the snow is starting to dry up here, but there was a big storm. I was going out to Cleveland for league and stuff, and the turnout was not that great there because I'm like 45 minutes away, and I had to drive, and the roads were so bad. It was like you couldn't even actually see the lines, so people were just kind of driving wherever. It was quite interesting to say the least, but we were alive, so we'll take it. So yeah, gotta love the holiday season. So, all right, we're starting to have some people come in now. Hey, Mark, how's it going? I hope you're doing all right. So I'll go ahead and fire this up now. Hey, Riley, what's going on? I got my wrist cleared a bowl a few weeks ago. Awesome, that's great to hear. I actually got to talk to the new coach. He seems very, very fun. So I hope the season's going very, very well. I'm also, provided that it's all of you are comfortable with it, would love to come out and get to watch you guys sometime, make a trip out to Bowling Green. So just let me know, and as long as everyone's comfortable with it, of course. I don't want to, obviously I won't bother you guys while you're up there, but just let me know. I'd love to come out and support you guys. But that's great to hear. I'm really glad that you're able to get cleared a bowl and hop back out there again. That's good stuff. So, all right, waving my hands for those of you watching the recording back. So a couple of housekeeping things so that way we all are kind of on the same page here rolling forward. So I don't suspect our viewership for this stream will be phenomenal because it's the holiday season. I totally understand it. So I'm likely going to redo this very similar stream to cover the same episode that we're covering here, given that it has one of the much more eye-opening concepts of the series, definitely the most eye-opening of the Arsenal Advantage and Adjustment series, and I don't want to make sure that everybody misses it. So I know for the next handful of weeks, I am likely not going to upload just to enjoy the holidays, spend time with family and everything. I'm sure all of you totally understand. I'll be sure to still put it up in an announcement regardless, so that way we all know. But I'll still remain attentive to my email. I know I'm a little bit behind. I got some catch up I have to do. So if you sent an email, don't worry. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just a little bit behind. So I'll do this stream now, and then likely probably after even the New Year's, I'll wait till after then, since I know people are traveling and doing other stuff. So after New Year's, we'll pick right back up to where we left off again, and the stream that week will be covered on this exact same topic. So if you're here and you can't watch the whole thing and you want to watch it back, or if you're watching this back and you want to be here live later on, we'll cover it again, because I'm sure a lot of things and questions will come up even from just now till the next time I get to talk to you guys again on a stream. So I want to make sure that we all have a good chance to not only be sure that we're properly digesting everything, but I want to make sure that all of you are able to slowly kind of learn to apply the things that you've been able to pick up throughout the series so far. Going to the poll, because I have not actually seen the newest uploads for the new series that'll be coming up. It's going to be for sure a, yeah, it's pretty split. I figured that the Zero to Hero and Inside Coach's Mind are going to be good. So that new series will pick up once we get back as well. So I'll probably kind of have that one sort of coexisting with the Arsenal Advantage and Adjustments playlist, because the Arsenal Advantage and Adjustments, we're going to start getting into knowing when to change balls and when to kind of apply your knowledge of the balls to understand, now that we kind of know how we should be viewing the lane surface and adjusting. So everything will be kind of playing hand in hand here, but I just want to make sure I'm being as transparent for all of you so you know what to be expecting. So just to kind of start off here in the best way, and we'll just kind of fire right into it here, is I think that there's a very common, not even I know that there's a very common misconception with bowling when it comes to what we think we're seeing. And I'm sure all of you got to kind of pick up on this, since most of you have been around for a little while. We're dating back a handful of months ago back to the Pathway of Learning in one of, if not the most popular video on the channel thus far, about the optical illusion of bowling. And when I talk about the optical illusion of bowling, if you haven't had a chance to view that episode, it's episode 3 of the Pathway of Learning. If you have a chance to hop back and check it out, I would strongly advise it. It's that the actual dimensions of the lane are not really what most of us are most commonly shown. Because I know when most of you are out there shopping for bowling balls and looking at equipment, a lot of bowling ball manufacturers will have that sort of bird's eye view where it's a lane drawn like this, and they'll draw a line that kind of shows the ball motion and what the look like you can be expecting of that bowling ball is to look like. But given that we know that there's only to hit the pocket, your bowling ball can only hook up to 18 inches in a perfect world. That would be if it goes all the way to the gutter to as close to the head pin as it can, which most of you aren't even hooking that much, which if we put that into perspective, if your bowling ball for most righties is most commonly striking on the 17th board, let's say you get your bowling ball out to 2. So it's only 2 inches away from the gutter line. The length of this ruler is the total amount of left and right movement that your bowling ball is having if you're getting it almost all the way out to the gutter. So put that into perspective for just a brief moment. Given that we're only hooking the bowling ball on average from left to right only 10, sometimes less than that, inches, but our bowling ball is traveling forward a total of, at the base of the foul line to the base of the head pin, 60 feet in length. A lot of adjustments, especially that most of us are taught when we're first getting into the sport, is to move left and right. But why should we be viewing it as the left and right movement it's having when in reality the left and right movement is only this important versus the 60 feet of the forward and back that we should be deeming as important? So what I'm sure all of you have come to realize very, very quickly in the way I've been explaining things, whether you've had a chance to realize it now or not, is the amount of hook that you're creating isn't in the amount of left or rightedness it's creating, but the early or lateness of which that bowling ball is beginning to move. So I'm trying to challenge all of your thinking on this to, instead of thinking of how far left is my ball moving, it should be how soon is my bowling ball beginning to move, because the sooner our bowling ball initiates into those hook and roll phases, the more left and right that ball is going to look like it's going. And the opposite is true for if it is hooking less. The less left and right it's going. If that bowling ball is waiting till a later period of time lengthwise to initiate into those hook and roll phases, that will then make the bowling ball seem to go left and right less. So this kind of feeds along with adjusting, right? Oh, hey Mike, what's going on? Nice to see you. Isn't total hook measure and total boards covered from the foul line? left and right. I mean, that's how we like to quantify it, but I don't like that's how we like to quantify it, because the only reason that your board coverage is more is because your bowling ball is initiating into the hook phase sooner. Because if I have two bowling balls, right, and one of them initiates into the hook phase at a later point, and one of them initiates into a hook phase at an earlier point, if I'm throwing the bowling ball that initiates the hook phase at an earlier point, it's going to seem like it is hooking more, but the only reason it's doing that is because it's hooking sooner, therefore making it look like it's hooking more left or right. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to quantify it that way, but don't look at it that way. The only reason that it is hooking more is because of the depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into those hook and roll phases. So, you know, given that we know how a lot of coaching and stuff likes to talk about the left and right movements, right? My question to all of you is why should we focus more on left and right movements if it's 100th as important as forward and back movements? That is the golden question of the day. Because I know all of you have been there or maybe are there now. And I'm sure all of you have tried this at some point, and maybe it's worked and maybe it hasn't. But I'll give a very, very similar scenario to all of you. So we've learned, and I'm sure all of you have, whether you learned it from me or someone else, is that the sooner your bowling ball can get into the hook and roll phase, which means getting it into friction sooner, that means it'll hook more. So if my bowling ball is not hooking enough, I can move to the right, which will therefore allow it to get to the friction at a sooner point in time, therefore meaning it is initiating into the hook and roll phase sooner and hooking more. So moving in the direction of my miss will commonly work. So if you're leaving something such as a 10 pin, and if you've been tuned around for a while and you've started to understand, well, why am I leaving a 10 pin? It's because of my deflection. Okay, that means my bowling ball isn't getting in tight enough. You've probably tried moving a board right, because logically that should get my bowling ball to pick up out of the friction a little bit sooner and get it to hook more. And again, it's hooking more, but guys, why is it hooking more? If I move right, why is my bowling ball hooking more? Is it hooking more because it's moving more left and right? Sure. Why is it doing that? Because it's now reading the lane at a sooner point in time. That is the why. Don't look at it from left and right. Look at it forward to backward. Yeah, but it covers more boards. It's definitely hooking more. Yes, you are correct, Mike. It is hooking more. But is it hook? Why is the ball where I'm standing over here hooking more? Because it is doing something with the friction at a sooner point in time. It's hooking more because it is initiating sooner, not later. A later ball cannot hook more than a ball that initiates into the hook and roll phase sooner, because those bowling balls are initiating at different points in time. Hooking more you shouldn't look at it as how left and right it's moving, but this ball is hooking more because it's initiating at a sooner point in time, meaning in turn it is moving left and right more. But don't look at it from that concept. That is what we do not want to look at it as. So going back to that 10 pin analogy, if you move a board right, and maybe it has worked out for some of you, maybe it hasn't. You know, if my bowling ball isn't quite making it and I'm leaving a 10 pin, you move a board right, maybe it struck, but maybe sometimes you'll throw it and it'll do something that you just didn't quite expect. Maybe it'll go through the face, it'll hook a ton more. Maybe it'll not move at all and it'll sail all the way through, and it'll never see that friction line until way later than the last shot. And it's like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do, right? On that last ball, I was so close, but no matter how minuscule of a movement left or right I make, I just can't get my bowling ball to behave in the way that's getting me even close to where I was before. This is how you fix it. Given that the overall amount left and right we can move is so limited in relation to the forward and backness we can move, the most minute adjustments you can make is by moving forward or backwards, as well as changing your speed. Those are what allow you to stay in the same zone, stay in the same spot you are. Because if you move left and right, think about how many more variables you could be running into. Let's say I'm standing right in the middle of the lane and I'm releasing the ball from there. Right? I'm standing in the middle of the lane, I'm releasing the ball. And let's say you're in a 5-man team league. So there's 9 other bowlers that are bowling with you, right? All those other bowlers are also rolling in their own spots. They're all standing in different spots. They're all rolling over different spots. They all target something different. The way they throw is all different. And that's all great. But if you move left and right and change that line that you're following, you're more than likely going to run into at least one of those other players' lines at a certain point in time, meaning something that has become textbook now becomes a whole lot more complicated. But think about it. If we could stay on that same exact line and just change something to where even though it's staying on the same line, I can either bring my friction line depth, the depth of which that bowling ball is hooking and rolling, either further or closer. That is what lets you make those minuscule adjustments without letting any of those other outliers or bowlers around you or other things get in the way of your good shot that you already had. Leaving something like a 10 pin or like a 7 pin or even like leaving like an 8 or 9 pin, right? You're close. You're right there, guys. You shouldn't have to make something that is going to allow all of these outside sources, give them a chance to mess up your shot, mess up your line. Stay on that line. Defensive bowling is great bowling, especially if you're in the high school or collegiate level or even league bowlers. I say this all the time. 9 spare every game is a 190. I know it stinks not to strike, and it's one thing if you're not striking and missing the spares, but defensive bowling is great bowling. Defensive bowling is what fixes averages. So it's thinking about what can I do to keep on that same line where I'm already so close and just negate all the other outliers because I know I'm so close. So this is what that episode is meant to have all of you thinking about. Hey there, how's it going? He said, what does lofting the ball fit in the discussion? That's a great question. So think about it this way. If you produce some hang time with your bowling ball, if you loft the ball, if your bowling ball does not immediately make contact with the lane, the bowling ball can't hook when it's in the air, right? So provided that when you loft the bowling ball, you can keep a same amount of rotation, to axis tilt, axis of rotation, and speed that you had produced before, that is going to accentuate that depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into the hook and roll phase, because for that time or that length that bowling ball spent in the air, let's say it spent the first 5 feet of the lane in the air, that means that bowling ball's reaction, provided had I laid it down right away, will be 5 feet further down lane than when it would be without, provided nothing else changes. But for most bowlers, if not all bowlers, if you loft the bowling ball, the ball is almost always never coming out of your hand in the same way that it is when you do not loft the bowling ball. Unless you're phenomenal, then hey, congrats to you. So that is something to consider, right? Something else to consider when you're doing that is, what am I changing when I am lofting the ball that will change that depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into those hook and roll phases? That's the challenge. That's a great question. So yeah, bowling ball cannot hook during that duration it's in midair, because that's just not how the world works. It's not how the bowling balls work. They can't even process very well. Yep, absolutely, not a problem. If you have any other questions, just fire them away, seriously. So going back to that discussion, so let's say that you're right there, guys. You're right there. You found a great line. You just cannot seem to get the carry you want. Well, changing your entry angle, as I've discussed in the prior episode, can help you, right? And that is what is changing when you change the depth of that bowling ball initiating into that hook and roll phase. Guys, if your bowling ball hooks at, let's say I'm on the same exact line, nothing is changing, and the bowling ball's hooking the same amount left and right, none of that's changing, but I'm lofting the bowling ball and throwing it slower. So lofting is allowing it to read the lane at a later point, which in turn would mean it wouldn't hook as much, but because going off what your question was, let's say I loft the bowling ball, but I also slow down my speed. The longer the bowling ball spends on the lane, that means it will be able to hook the same amount or hook more, right? So the lofting is accentuating the depth of which that bowling ball is going to read the lane and initiate into that hook and roll phase, but my slower speed is shortening the depth of which that bowling ball will initiate into the hook and roll phase. So the loft and slower speed are counteracting each other, meaning the bowling ball is still hooking the same amount left and right, but it's initiating into those phases at a later point. And what have we learned about angle of entry? The more angle of entry we have, aka the steeper that bowling ball is waiting and entering into the pocket, or in our case of thinking it forward and backwards, if our bowling ball initiates into the hook and roll phase at a later point, that means it'll be coming in at a more drastic angle than one that's hooking and rolling at a sooner point. Meaning, if you're now leaving a 10 pin, by you adding that loft and lowering your speed, guess what? You're hitting the same spot in the head pin, your ball's making this very similar looking motion, but because it's initiating into that hook and roll phase at a slightly later point than before, that now means it has that additional angle of entry to kick that 10 pin out of there. Guys, this is the stuff that is changing. I don't want you to look at it left and right. Look at it front to back. This is the eye-opener. This is what makes good bowlers great. This is what the reality is, right? Yeah, see, it is very interesting because, again, like we're all taught, right? Move in the direction of my miss. Why are you doing that? Why is that what we're taught? Because it's changing the depth. Not the left and rightedness, it's changing the depth of which our bowling ball is initiating into that hook and roll phase. That's why we teach it. And you know why we teach it, especially to beginners? Is because given that you don't have to be as drastic with the left and right move as you do front and back to make as big of a change, it gives you instant gratitude, right? If I move a board right, that can cause up to 3 boards, guys, of left and right difference from that one board left and right I've moved. But if I move forward an inch, that's not going to change nearly as much as it would if I moved left and right an inch, right? So look at it that way, right? The importance of which we care about the ball. Again, this is on average, and even this, I'd say most of you are getting your ball to hook about 10 inches. This is if you get your ball out to 7 and it comes in. What does moving front versus moving back do? That's a great question, Mike. That's exactly where I was going with this. So moving front and back can be very complicated depending on what bowler of you are. So I need all of you to listen very, very carefully. So all of you, I hope are aware, if you bowl, how close are you getting to the foul line? Are you one of those that gets right on the edge of the line, or are you one of those that has a handful of feet or a foot or so of room between your foot and the foul line? So take that in mind. Let's say you fall in the first category of someone that ends up at the foul line. So you cannot afford to be a half an inch closer, because if you do, you are going to foul, okay? Logically, and this is just human nature, if you fall right on the edge of the foul line, I hope you guys like the Christmas pants. I try to be festive today. If I take a half step back like this, my brain is knowing, okay, I need to pick up my feet to reach the foul line, which will then in turn cause you to release the ball faster. Then, if you do the same philosophy, but you take a half step forward, if I took a half step forward, I now know, okay, if I can't afford to take the same amount of steps I take normally when I'm here, because if I do, I'm going to foul. So your body condenses itself and slows your feet down, which in turn is slowing your ball speed down. So if you fall right on the foul line, moving front and back will almost do the opposite. So if you want your ball to hook less and you end up right at the foul line, take a half step back and allow your body to produce more momentum forward and release the ball with more speed. And if you want your ball to hook a little bit more, you can lower your speed by taking that half step inch forward, and now your feet will slow down, your arm will slow down, and your ball speed will slow down. Now, let's say you are the other type of bowler where you have maybe a foot or so of room between you and the foul line. If I want my bowling ball to hook just a smidge more, if I'm leaving a 10 pin, if it's just a little bit light, if I take a half step back and don't speed my feet up, which I guess the first bowler could do this as well. If I take a half step back and don't speed my feet up at all and keep my ball speed the same, I'm now releasing the ball a half step back in relation to where I do normally. Meaning I'm bringing that depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into that hook and roll phase the same distance I just stepped back down lane. So if I stepped a foot back and released the bowling ball a foot behind where I usually do, the depth of which that ball was reading when I was up here is here. On this shot, I now moved it a foot back because I'm releasing the ball a foot back. But what the bowler who falls short of the foul line has access to is to move forward, because they know I have room between my foot and the foul line. So if I move forward, my feet don't have to slow down. I can release it and push my depth forward. That is something that you have to take into account. So it's speed, and forward and backwards can change your speed depending on, because some bowlers just have that kind of block in their mind, whether they realize it or not. Even if you fall short of the foul line, you might have it as well. If you take a half step forward, you almost kind of get that, and you'll know it right away, I promise. You'll feel the same feeling. Like go out and practice and take a half step forward, and if you feel kind of like claustrophobic and like while you're going, you feel like you're gonna run into the line, some bowlers will even kind of like up their posture and like lean back because they're scared of fouling. If you're doing that, you know right away you're gonna do the opposite. So if you do that, you'll know. Do that at first. Take a half step forward and see what you feel. If you feel totally normal and you're not coming up fouling or anything, then that is something you can do. Moving back will make the ball hook sooner and more. Moving forward will make the ball hook later and less. But if you go up there and you feel kind of claustrophobic when you step forward, for you it will be the opposite. So if you want to bring the depth back or make it hook sooner, take a half step forward because you know you're going to release it a little bit slower. And then if you want to accentuate it, take a half step back because you know that will make you feel obligated to speed up and release the bowling ball with more speed. So it's kind of interesting because one adjustment never really works for one person. And that's what makes it so unique, and what makes adjusting the most intricate and technical thing in the world is because no bowler has the same way that they perceive it and the same odds. But one thing that I will tell you, that every professional will tell you that they are perceiving the same, is that they are not looking at the lane from left to right. They're looking at it from front to back. What do we see? Have we already talked about if we should approach the foul at an angle or not? No, so we can talk about that. Always slide straight. Yeah, always sliding straight. So yeah, so you would optimally want your slide to be forward as you can get it, because that's where your momentum is going. That's where you want the ball to be released. But a lot of bowlers, especially righties that tend to miss 10 pins, they'll try to stand more to the left-hand side of the lane, and they'll go up and they'll throw. But you have to have your shoulders be aligned with what you want to roll at, because your shoulders will have the easiest time accentuating forward in relation to where they're facing. So if I'm standing way deep on the lane and I have to get my ball to go more to this side, I want my slide to still be forward, but I want my body to be slightly more open to allow my arm swing to feel freer and then go in the direction of my shoulders. And then if I'm off trying to play very straight, I still want to slide forward, but I want my shoulders to be facing where I want to go. So I will then close my posture up a little bit, still slide forward, and then look, then I can now roll at you guys. And you can tell that I'm used to playing deep because I'm used to having a very open stance. And you'll notice when I bowl, my hand likes to come a little bit this way. I personally struggle with closing up and rolling straight at you guys like this. My arm always wants to go a little out. Everybody, depending on what zones that they usually find themselves to be confined to, your physical game will kind of cater itself to how you like to play the lane, because logically, I like to say you don't want to shut the door in your face. And I like to refer to that opening of your body as shutting the door. If you shut the door in your face, as I like to say, or you stay too closed up and you have to, like, let's say I have to throw the ball this way. And if I shut the door in my face by closing up my body too far this way, it's really hard for me to release the bowling ball this way, because that's not how our arms like to swing. They like to swing forward in relation to our body, right? So don't shut the door in your face, and keep the door open for as long as you need the door to be open, if that makes sense. Let's see. If I move back, do you stay behind or on the side of the ball slower back? So if you move forward or backwards, the big thing, and I've said this before with adjusting, and I'll make sure I say it again, Debbie, is when you're adjusting, you want, even if your release is not optimal, you could have, the ball could come out of your hand the worst way possible. I don't care. Adjusting can never be effective if the way and the manner in which your bowling ball is popping off your hand is not consistent. Now, a caveat to that is if you can change a way your bowling ball is coming off your hand, then by all means do that. But if you are only capable of releasing the bowling ball one way consistently and confidently, don't try to change 1,800 things at once. Don't reinvent the whole wheel here. So if you move front or back, Debbie, and that's the only thing you're trying to change, don't let your release change along with it, because if you release the bowling ball one time with a bunch of axis rotation, that means that process of precession will take longer to get it to stabilize and go forward and roll end over end within a handful of feet of the pins, right? So if you release that one time and it looks good, and the next shot, you then don't release it with this much axis rotation, but instead this much, that process of precession is different. And now this ball will have a much sooner time. You will shorten up that depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into the hook and roll phases, then changing your ball motion, changing what you thought was going to happen, and vice versa. So if you're going to make a change like that, especially if you're first trying it out, I would strongly, strongly advise, don't reinvent the whole wheel. Just change one cog or just change one gear and see how it works. So don't worry about changing the release along with your feet for now. Try moving your feet so you can see how much of a difference that makes, and then go from there. So next time all of you leave a 10 pin, I want you to do this, and all of you are going to gasp. Next time you leave a 10 pin, I want you just to take a half step back, and don't allow your feet to speed up. And I mean take literally like an inch of a step back. If you like to line up on the front dots, let the center of your foot be on the front dot. And throw. And I can bet you almost my whole life savings, if you release the bowling ball in the same way on the same line, you're going to strike. Hands down. Now, if you miss your target, well, that's a little bit of another story. But provided that you keep everything the same and you execute well, it will strike. I can tell you with full confidence, because on a house shot, it is the most catered to give you the most miss room, and it caters the best to it. 1 inch will not make any difference. You want to bet? I can tell you it will. Just wait till the next episode when I show you. I can tell you it will. You might have to move more than 1 inch. You'll probably want a couple, given that there is 60 feet, right? You can be, this kind of feeds into my exact thing, Mike, so I appreciate you for asking that. You can be more minute when you make forward and backward changes than you can left and right. If I move a board left and right, that's, unless you move a 50th of a board or a 100th of a board, you cannot make minuscule changes left and right, but you can front and back. So try moving a couple inches back, move a couple inches forward, try moving a foot back, try moving a foot forward. Be kind of drastic with the front and back moves and see how much of a difference it makes for you, because no bowler throws the ball the same way. And how my bowling ball walks through that process of procession, and how Debbie's or Mike's or is it Pedrino, or how his ball or her ball likes to create that motion, right? That's the stuff that you have to figure out on your own, because no bowling ball's procession is the same. If you move an inch back, there will be no difference at all. I can tell you that there will. Whether it be because you change something in your mind or whatever, it will make a difference. Mike, if you don't think it makes a difference, it's because you have not tried it. You need to try it, and you need to believe me, because if you don't think it will make a difference, especially since you seem like you have a pretty good concept, I like to think that you definitely bowl on sport shots. If you bowl on sport shots and you don't feel comfortable making an inch move front and back, then there's no way you're performing well on those sport shots. I'm not trying to be mean or be rude or belittle anybody, but that's the stuff that you have to know if you want to compete competitively, because only amateur bowlers are the ones making left and right. It will, because it will bring the ball that little bit. It will bring the hook and roll phase an inch or two, or however many you move, closer. And it will bring that bowling ball that much closer in on the head pin, which will then cater the deflection to the angle of entry that you are creating. I'm telling you it will, provided that you execute well. And if you just cannot believe me, that is okay. I'm not here to convince you otherwise, but I'm just telling you, it will help, or it'll at least get you a half step closer, right? You need to figure out what works for you. So don't try moving more than a couple inches then, Mike. Move like 3 or 4 inches back. And I'm telling you, if you release the ball that much further back, it will bring that hook or roll phase that much further back as well, therefore bringing it that much closer on the head pin, therefore having you in much higher odds of carrying you that 10 pin. It makes sense when you really do think about it. In a perfect world, I'm not saying that that's every time, but it will help. We absolutely see the lane front to back, but I promise you we all move left and right. If the ball ever hooks, we create hold. So here's the thing. Because I'm explaining it front to back, I don't want all of you to think that left and right moves are not something that you should consider to make, right? Especially when you're bowling with other people, because where everyone's throwing and how the lane breaks down will always be different every time you bowl. No matter if you're bowling professionals, bowling, the Tuesday coffee league with all the older people, right? I mean, the lane breaks down in different ways every time. So if you're standing somewhere, I don't want all of you to think, you have to confine yourself left and right, because sometimes the shot will not be there, right? The best way I like to describe this, Mike, I appreciate you for guiding me along here, is to think of it as finding it versus keeping it. So I like to say moving left and right will help you find it, right? Because it makes the biggest difference the quickest, it's the best thing you can do to help get you into the pocket. But once you find it, it's about keeping it. And if you only make left and right moves after you've found it, it will be less advantageous than not to move left and right a bunch of times. So left and right moves help you find it, but your speed and front and back moves are what help you keep it. And I'm not saying that you can lose it, right? Because you can be bowling something and, little Timmy, who with his purple hammer could come in and he could start ripping the ball down the lane and messing up your line. So don't feel confined to only back and forward and backward and speed changes, but think of it as, do I need to find the pocket, or have I found it and just need to keep it? That's kind of the analysis you want to run. So Mike, I 100% agree. I don't want you guys to think that you have to confine yourself to just moving left and right. And I hope I'm not upsetting you, Mike, but I like talking to you because you like to guide my discussions very well. It's like perfect. But don't feel like you always have to make left and right moves when you're right there, right? Because if you're if you take a shot and it leaves a 4-pin, or you take a shot and then you go a little light and it leaves a 7, or you take a shot and it goes a little light and leaves a 10-pin, right? There's different leaves for very, very similar entry angles and amount of deflection you're getting. But if you're right there, guys, you know, don't think that you have to make a left and right move to make such a small change. But if you're way off and you're standing in one spot and maybe you miss a half an inch down lane and it goes right through the face, and then you hit your target you wanted and it doesn't hook at all, well, that's when it's like, all right, where I'm standing clearly is not giving me a consistent motion and is not giving me any wiggle room at all, because no one, to include professionals, can be accurate down to a fraction of a half of an inch. That's just not possible, especially if you're bowling in a league or something, right? Find a spot that gives you the most wiggle room possible. But if you find yourself to where it's like, oh man, like I feel like I can miss a decent amount, but it's still getting me close to the pocket, then is when I would advocate, hey, let's try moving front or back. Let's try being a little softer or a little harder with our speed, because that's what helps you keep it. And that's what helps you get settled in a whole lot easier. In today's game, the better and pro bowlers move left and gradually slow down, not to stay right and speed up. Most bowlers cannot change and control speeds very well, but they can make small 2-1. Yeah, but again, 2-1 is small when you look at it from left and right, but front and back, it's not that small of a move. On the professionals, all follow a very similar lineage. I agree with you on that. They usually tend to move left, and they'll usually slow their ball speed down to kind of cater to that position. But why they're doing that, Mike, is because they're trying to keep that entry angle and deflection the exact same every shot. Given that their bowling ball is going to slowly read sooner and sooner and sooner, they say, all right, the entry angle I'm creating and the depth of which that bowling ball is initiating into those hook and roll phases is what they like. They like that because that's what their eyes like to see, and they know when it reads that spot of the lane, based off of how they like to hit the pins, that gives them the best angle of entry for the deflection that they want to get the most amount of strikes. So because of that, if they continue, if their depth of which their bowling ball is hooking keeps getting sooner and sooner and sooner, they move left to push it back to that same spot and slow their speed down to also allow it to still read. Because if you move left, it's going to push it a ton. So let's say, Mike, in this scenario, it's EJ, and this is where he wants his ball to be reading on the lane. And he can keep upping his speed, but it's still going to keep reading sooner and sooner and sooner. So he moves left, and that now brings his depth out here. It's far. So now what he does is he slows down to inch it back. They're keeping it in the same spot. If any of you like to watch Mark Baker and you've heard that Baker's box, that's kind of what they're playing to, right? But they're keeping the depth at a similar spot, but just playing the lane in different ways. No, they're moving away from the hook and moving into hold. There's more volume in the middle, which requires less speed so the ball can hook. Yes, that's what I just was saying. No, they're moving away from the hook and moving into the hold. Yes, they're moving into the hold because if they keep staying out there, Mike, it's going to keep bringing it sooner. They don't like their stuff to read sooner. So by moving left, they're bringing it back up to that spot they want their ball to read. So we're agreeing. You are correct. Yes, they are chasing the hold. And why are they chasing the hold? Because that is the optimal entry angle that they're trying to create. That is what they like to see. So that is why that is happening. So good analysis. I really like how we're on this. It kills me every time I always talk to Mike on here because we're always so on the same page, but I feel like we just explain things in a different way. Bowlers need to be taught to throw into the hold, not to hook. Yes, and the hold, I do agree with you there, right? Because a lot of bowlers need to realize that they need their ball to be dipping into the friction toward that break line, right? Because that's kind of what that's supposed to cater toward. But this is very specific to a lot of the sport shots, I believe, in my personal opinion, because the house shots are already catered to be, they have all that hold in the middle and they have less hold on the outside, and all the sport shots kind of have that as well. But with most league bowlers not all rolling the same way, it's not a matter of finding what the professionals do, but it's a matter of finding what works for them, right? Not every bowler that bowls in leagues are perfectly balanced like the professionals. So what you're saying, and I agree with you, is you want to chase the hold and you want to do that, but with how some bowlers release the bowling ball, they can't afford to chase the hold because they already, like let's say it's a speed dominant bowler, right? In the professional setting, there are bowlers that have crazy speed, but they're not so mismatched to a point where they
that they're confined to a certain section of the lane, right? But some league bowlers and some of the more amateur bowlers who are first starting out don't have that versatility yet. So because of that, they have to play the lane in a different way. So the way I'm explaining it is allowing every skill level to have a way to learn that. And if you've been around for longer and you are balanced, those bowlers play in a zone that will cater to that. If a bowling ball has a balanced release, they will most often play in a zone that allows that balanced release to look the best, right? You will find that, especially with the revolution dominant bowlers, especially like myself, well, I fall in the balance, but barely. You know, those bowlers are always playing deep on the lane because they've learned, whether it be by intention or just over time, they've learned that they have to play that deep because of that hold in the center. And those that are extremely speed dominant, which I've coached a lot of those even just throughout starting this channel, they know that they can't play those spots because they can't afford to have the ball to hold. They have to let their ball immediately see the friction. So I totally agree with you, Mike, and I totally understand it. But in the case of this and in the case of allowing everybody to understand it, you have to cater how you're playing the lane to how you bowl, not to how EJ Tackett or how Belmonte bowls, and they're not even bowling on the same conditions as us. So, Mike, I don't want you to think I'm disagreeing with you, because I'm absolutely not. I 100% agree, and I'm 100% seeing what you're seeing. We're seeing eye to eye, but in the best way possible, we need to allow every skill level to understand it. Once we find it and the hold, and it starts missing pocket, do we still change our feet or target slightly? Yes, absolutely. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, Debbie, right? I don't want you guys to feel confined or feel as if, you know, now that you're seeing the lane front and back, that left and right moves don't make a change, because they absolutely do. But the way that I would perceive it is, if you're making a left and right move, just don't think of it as my ball's going to hook more if I move this way, or my ball's going to hook less if I move this way. But think of it as, when I move this way, my bowling ball will hook sooner or later. And because it's hooking sooner or later, that will cause the amount of which it's hooking to be deviated or changed, right? So perceive it as from front to back. Don't perceive it from left to right, because going back to what I said before, Debbie, when you really think about it, oh my gosh, I got these like really bad like hiccups. I don't even know what they are, guys. I apologize. I keep going like this. The only thing that we're really changing when we adjust is the depth of which our bowling ball is initiating into those phases. And because of that, that's changing our angle of entry. And that's the big thing we're changing, is the angle of entry. And it's about changing what angle of entry you want in order to hit the pins the correct way. And I'll kind of shed some more light on this, because I think most of you understand it, but I've been having some questions come in about, you know, what exactly do I want more of? And I'll kind of describe it in a way again. So I'll draw this out. And I know that the camera's flipped, so I'm going to draw it backwards to the best of my ability. So here we have, or I can even flip the camera around. So I'll show you guys this, because this is what I think is kind of, this is the big thing that we're trying to achieve here. So I'm just going to flip this around here, if you guys do not mind. And hopefully I can get this to work. Let's see if this works. Hallelujah. There we go. This is my Diet Coke as well, of course. So here's the pins. So this should be the correct way. So if this is the 1, the 2, the 3, 4, 5, 6, that looks like another number, 8, 9, 10. So here's the balls, right? So if you're looking at these pins, right, you want your bowling ball to travel through them. That will give you the most opportune way to strike. In our words, deflection. So if my ball hits off of a pin, it's not going straight through that pin. It might hit it and get beat around and bounce off of it. So for a perfect strike, your bowling ball should go something like this. It should hit the 1 pin. It should deflect a little into the 3 pin, deflect a little into the 5, and deflect into the 9. So when your ball makes contact with the 1, it hits it into the 2. The 2 hits it into the 4. The 4 hits into the 7. When your ball makes contact with the 3, it hits the 3 pin into the 6, and the 6 pin into the 9. And when your ball makes contact with the 5, it hits it into the 8. So because the angle of which your ball is entering the pocket can change, that changes the deflection characteristics accordingly. So let's say in an example, I'm just going to redraw all this out because there's a lot going on there. I'll give you 2 different examples. So the more angle of entry you have, the looser you have to be on this head pin to get the deflection you want. So let's say your bowling ball is not coming in from a steep angle. Let's say it's coming in very shallow, like this. This bowling ball will have an easier time getting bounced off of the side of this because it has less energy coming in at an angle. So this ball has to be really close to the middle because it'll bounce off this a ton and give me the deflection I want. Versus if my ball is coming in from a very steep angle like this,
if I go too close to the center, like it is here, it's going to have too little deflection and it's going to go this way, which is what we don't want. So the difference with getting the deflection you want to getting the angle of entry to get the deflection you want is the angle of entry directly changes the amount of closeness, I guess, so to speak, you want to get on the head pin. So the shallower the angle of entry you have, the closer you want to be on this head pin. And the steeper angle of entry you have, the looser you're going to want to be on this head pin because of the fact that it is coming in from more of an angle. Does that make sense? So think of it this way. The shallower, the closer, the steeper, the looser. So because not every bowler is getting their ball to hook at the same depth on the lane, and when you make adjustments, it will either accentuate or bring it closer to you in depth-wise on the lane, because again, looking at it front to back, that will change the deflection characteristics you are getting accordingly. So in an instance where, I'm behind these questions, give me one sec. Yeah, they're throwing into the whole bowlers. Wants to define, what's the angle you were to draw a line from the 39 board at the foul line, diagonal across the line to the 1 board at the pins? What is the angle you were to draw a line from 39 board at the foul line, diagonal across the line? Oh, like to across the lane. I think I'm just like not quite getting the question, Mike. What's the angle you were to draw? What's the angle if you were to draw a line from the 39 board at the foul line, diagonal across the line? Oh, like from the corner to corner? That's a good question. Like from coast to coast, I want to say, because you can't create more than, I know it can't be up to 3 degrees because 3 degrees will require you to be on the lane over. So logically, I'm just mental mathing it here. It should be between 2 or 3 degrees, but probably closer to 2 degrees. Because if you go back to when we had, if you had a chance to go on Mike on those shorts, the black lines, you see the 2 degree lines, or no, it'll be less, it'll be 2 to 1 degree. 2 to 1 degree, or 2 to 0, I guess. I can't give you an exact measurement. But if you go back and you look at the angles of entry, you'll notice the 2 degree line makes it too close to the arrows, but not quite. So I think it should be between 2 and 1 degree, but a very, very minimal amount. Okay, so that took me a second. I apologize. All coaches preach stay behind the ball. If so, when we release it, would that produce an end over end roll? Yes. So the reason why a lot of coaching, that's a good question. So a lot of coaching likes to preach staying up behind the back of the ball because it's more catered to the dimensions of the lane surface. So because the lane is so thin and because it's so wide, the more end over end roll you produce, the sooner that will allow your bowling ball to initiate into that hook and roll phase accordingly. So with a lot of bowlers, when they're first learning to hook the ball especially, you'll come to notice that a lot of them they feel like they have to work really hard to get that bowling ball to hook the amount they want, and they'll get really around the ball. And when you get around the ball like that makes the process, that almost isn't fit to, I talked about this in the pathway of learning a lot, it almost isn't really fit to the dimensions of the lane, right? Given that we know the ball is only moving left and right this much, logically, in our heads, for coaching, that means bowlers don't have to really work very hard to get their ball to hook a lot because it doesn't have to hook a whole lot. So by rolling end over end, that is a good way of teaching someone who's bowling that they don't have to work so hard to get their bowling ball to hook because they don't need to. And something else to keep in mind when you get around the bowling ball is the more around the bowling ball you get, the more accentuated that process of procession will be. So the more, because the more I get up the back of the ball, the sooner it'll want to roll, and the more I get around the ball, the later it'll want to roll. But if you get so around the ball then becomes extremely sensitive to the speed you're producing. So if you're an amateur bowler and you can't produce a very consistent speed, and one shot might be 2 miles an hour faster than your previous, and the next one you're a mile an hour slower, if you're releasing the ball in a manner that is most reliant on the speed of which you're producing, which is very common in the suitcase method if you have any lead bowlers that do that, if you throw in a way that's so touchy with your speed, it makes it extremely hard to get a consistent ball motion. So that's why a lot of coaches like to preach it. But I still think that most bowlers could certainly benefit from learning to go more up the back of the bowling ball, especially amateurs, because they feel like they have to work so hard to get their ball to hook enough. But I would say that you still want to have some balance, right? Because the process of procession is meant to help you. And if you drill up the back of the ball so much, you're not really allowing the technology to give you any assistance. So
you want to work up the back of the ball, of course, to allow it to fit the dimensions of the lane the best and make it as least touchy to speed as you can. But you want to give it enough angle of rotation out of your hand to where that technology and the oil and such can give you that deflection characteristics you want. Because if you get so up the back of the bowling ball and the ball initiates into the hook and roll phase too early, that's going to get that ball to go fully end over end way too soon. And when that bowling ball goes fully end over end, more than 5 feet or so before making contact with the pins, it loses a lot of that drive and it deflects off of everything. Versus if you get a little bit around it, but still work the back more so than around it, that will accentuate that hook and roll phase late enough to allow it to go fully end over end only a handful of feet before making contact with the head pin and give the deflection that you're looking for. Imaginary line for, but yeah, it should be like 1 to 2 degrees, I believe, Mike. Because I could pull up the video and give you more insight, but it should be between 1 or 2 degrees because in the shorts you'll see the longest black line gets to just about the arrows. So I'd like to think that 1 degree would probably get you just about there. So probably right at around 1 degree to get you from one edge of it to the other one. 3.14. That's the pi symbol. If you think that that's the degrees of angle to get you there, that is not right. For you to even get more than 3 degrees without applying rotation on the bowling ball, you would have to release the bowling ball from the other lane over to get that angle you want. Oh, well, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Mike. I am so sorry. You're saying in the corner, not in relation to the head pin. I am sorry. Okay, then yes, that would probably be about correct. Yes, you would be correct. I was thinking of the head pin. I don't know why I'm so off with this. I am so sorry. Yes, that does sound correct, about 3 degrees. But yeah, why were you asking? Just curious, or because we don't really care about that. We care about the angle of which it's hitting the head pin, not more so of the corner to corner. Or are you just trying to get the dimensions more so? I apologize, yeah, because that video is in the perspective of the head pin, so the black lines will be skewed. So if you move that black line to the corner, that would, okay, yes, you were correct. I do apologize. Gosh, it goes to show you I'm all sorts of out of whack today, guys. All sorts of out of whack. I'm trying to think. If that is a steel angle, then why do our shoulders and hips need to be so open while shooting 10 pins? Well, because the big thing that especially a lot of bowlers like to think about, Mike, is a lot of bowlers, especially when they're first starting out, usually, unless they're youth, they tend to be rev dominant, but a lot of them are speed dominant. And what a lot of bowlers are used to playing, they're not used to playing very, very coast to coast. They're not used to playing up the left-hand side of the lane. Most league bowlers are playing up the middle, or they're tweeners and they can't get the amount of rotation they want and they're playing pretty direct. So because they're used to playing in this area of the lane, their shoulders like to align this way. So if you teach someone, hey, fire across the lane at your 10 pins or your spares, and you take a bowler who's used to keeping their body angled in this direction, and you then tell them to stand way over here, well, because they're so used to being confined to this area, they have a difficult time projecting their ball out enough to get it to be on line with that pin. And you'll notice a lot of amateurs that are used to playing over here, they'll tend to miss their 10 pins to the left because the angle of which their body is facing is not open enough. So by opening up your hips ever so slightly and opening up your shoulders ever so slightly to match that 3.14 degrees like you stated, that is what gives that bowler that just amount of openness that they need to project their arm this way at the 10 pin, as opposed to being closed up and projecting their arm this way to the left of the 10 pin. But then that comes at a cost, because a lot of new bowlers like to think that they have to over exaggerate, so they might really open up, and then those bowlers will miss way to the right. So if you're a bowler and you tend to miss your 10 pins, it's probably because you're not playing the angle of your body to the angle of which that you're targeting. So if my target's this, like if I'm trying to shoot a 10 pin and I'm looking at the center arrow, I always say to have your shoulders and hips be in alignment with your target, not the lane. So your feet should be traveling straight in the direction of the lane, but your body and shoulders should be facing and projecting in the direction of your target. So if I'm standing here and my target's here, I want my shoulders and hips to be facing that, but I don't want to walk toward that. I want to walk in the direction of the lane, but keep my body faced at that target, if that makes sense. What's a good arrow to shoot 10 pins though? I would say between the third and fourth arrow. Either the third, a lot of bowlers who are able to flatten their hand have the best success with the third arrow. If you're a bowler that struggles and you need to kind of chase that hold a little bit more, Mike, I would say just right of the head arrow is where most bowlers can shoot across lane quite effectively. It's kind of up to personal preference, whatever you like to release the bowling ball with, but that is a big common like physical thing that I think a lot of bowlers would greatly benefit from, is if they can learn how to play the angles of their body in relation to where they're trying to project the ball. That will help you be a whole lot more accurate, and kind of feeds pretty directly into a good portion of these adjusting concepts, because it's hard to adjust if your accuracy isn't that great. And if you learn to adjust and keep yourself in the pocket and you're just not striking, but then you're missing spares, it kind of, you know what I mean? It's a good way to bring your score and kind of drop those scores down quite a lot. Coach, if I drift forwards boards left, should I target 2 boards left? So that's an interesting question. So logically, I would say yes. So it kind of depends on how your drift is. And it's about, because if I sit up here, and I know I'm going to drift at the foul line, and by the time I'm done with my approach, I drift to here. If I'm targeting this arrow here, and I drift to here, that now means I'm going to miss, like, because we don't care about, if you're an arrow person, what we care about, and what we've been talking about for adjusting, is the depth of which that bowling ball is responding. And if I'm looking here, when I set up, but I drift 4 boards left, and I'm still looking here, since I thought my ball was going to go this way and end up here, pretty much in line with you guys, if I go here, my ball is now going to go this way, off to the side of you guys. So in your case, since you're going 4 boards left, if I want my line to go at you guys, if I go 4 boards left and go 2 boards left with my eyes, that's going to keep my ball on line with you guys. So logically, I would say yes, that would be a good methodology. Now, if you have a drift, but it is not consistent, that is something to take note of, because that will cause some variance in where you're projecting the ball, right? Because if you keep the same target, but just move your feet 1 left or 1 right, that will cause down lane, the left or rightness in which that bowling ball is reaching, to likely be 2 to 3 inches or boards off, which is ridiculous, which again kind of ties together these concepts where I always say, you know, when you move left and right, there's a lot of other things that are changing that can be kind of overwhelming if you don't look at the lane from front to back. So you, my friend, are looking at it from a great perspective. So yes, would be a good way to look at it. If I use my middle arrow and the ball is 5 boards from my ankle, where do I need to slide? So that's another thing to take into account. So great question, Mike. So there's this concept of, I like to say with bowling, because I like to relate bowling to shooting, right? Because it's a precision-based sport. But with shooting, if I'm looking down the scope and I'm trying to hit, if you guys are my target, the bullet's coming out from where I'm looking. But in bowling, you're not shooting from your eye, you're shooting from the hip. You're shooting from here. And where my eyes are in line with is not where my arm is in line with. So it's almost like my sights are looking at you guys, but where the bullet is coming from is my hip. I'm shooting at the hip. So if you release the bowling ball 10 boards away from your body or 5 boards away from your head, or like in relation to your eyes, if you release the bowling ball 5 boards right of your eyes, that means where your eyes think the ball is going to go versus where your arm is projecting the ball to go are going to be deviated. So in your case, Mike, if I use the middle arrow and my ball is 5 boards from my ankle, where do I need to slide? So logically, here, we can pull it up. Let's pull up a lane. I wonder if I can get like a draw. Let me see. Let's kind of draw this out, because this is still a good, not AI, I don't want AI. Let me see. This is a good thing to kind of talk about, because targeting does make a big difference. Bowling lane actual dimensions. Here we go. I'm just going to save this photo, and I'll flip the camera around so we can look at this together. Open image. 1 second, guys. I apologize. I'm trying to make this work. All right. Let me make sure it lets me draw here. So let's take a look here. So this is that photo I like to use for the lane surface, because this is what the actual dimensions are. Hang on, I'm going to fix this, guys. I know it's kind of blurry. Bear with me here. 2 seconds. Can I get this to focus? It'll definitely help. All right, so here's our lane. So if we zoom in here, these are our arrows, right? And we can see here's our pins. So in the instance of what Mike was saying, he's saying he wants to, if his ball is released 5 boards right of where his ankle is, where does he want to hit the head pin? So his target is this center arrow. Let's see if I can get a draw up thing here. Here we go. Drawing. So if this is, that's too big. So if this is his target, this is where he's trying to hit. So if we can do our best, can I like put in like shapes? Oh, come on, tell me I don't like, can I put in shapes? Please, please. Oh, it stinks I can't put in shapes. Oh, I wish I could. So this is our target down lane. I am really great at drawing. I'm not good with keyboard and mouse, guys. This is why I stink at video games. So here's our target. Here's where we want our ball to go. So logically, we should just draw a line from this. That's the right direction. Good job. Let's draw a line. This looks awful, I know. Bear with me. Back to this. Okay, that's not even going to work. That's horrible. There's got to be like a line or something, right? I wonder if I can look up red line transparent. Here we go. Let's copy this. Let's see if I can just put this in here. Oh, oops. Arrange, paste. Aha! That is not transparent. Let's try that again. Or I can just crop it. Hang on. We're going to make this work, guys. This is great. I came very well prepared for this, as you guys can see. So if I crop this to be this line, kind of, at least try to crop it into a line. Okay. Yeah, I'm done. Don't want to crop the whole thing. Anyway, we're just going to draw, guys. We're going to make it work. So if I'm looking, get this out of here. If I'm looking at this here, I'm going to draw a line. A red one, please. Man, this is great. Remind me again to never, ever work technology ever. So here's my really straight line, right? So I'm going to continue to draw this line back even further. Trying to keep it as straight as I can in relation to what we drew. Boom. So this is where I need, if I do not rotate the ball, this is where I need to be releasing the ball to get it to go in the direction of the 10 pin, which if we look is on, what is that? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. This is on 30. And if you release it 5 boards right of where you're standing, that means you'll be standing 5 boards left. Your feet should be on 35. Boom. That's all there is to it. Now, obviously, we don't have a tool like this at our disposal, but relating, because he's firing from the hip, I can see this is where his foot's going, and this is where he's laying down that ball. So if your foot gets it around 35, maybe a little bit more than that, because I drew the long line like poop. If you get it a little bit more than that, around there, Mike, if you keep it dead straight and hit that arrow you want, should get you pretty darn close to getting on that 10 pin. Boom. That's all there is to it. So a lot of it is making decisions in real time is about like drawing lines and drawing them, not literally like I just did, especially since, remind me again, never ever draw with a mouse. I need to draw with like an actual pen or something, right? Drawing out stuff like that can make a big difference. So that's where you should release it. So Mike, for you, 35. That's what you want. And for all of you, if you all release straight, if you can flatten your hand or whatever, if you release at 35, should get you pretty close. Let's see. Wouldn't it be 30? Well, 30 is where your ball's laying down, but since your ball's being laid down 5 boards right in relation to where your eyes are, if your ball's being released 5 boards right of where you're landing, you'll land 5 boards left of that 30 where you'll be firing the ball off from, which will be 35. So 30 laid down with your ball, but if it's 5 boards right in relation to your left foot, then your left foot should be on 35. Obviously play around with it because it's going to be a little different for each of you, but within the realm of 30 and 35 area is where you'll likely have most luck. I know most bowlers that are that don't create a whole ton of rotation usually have better success with the third arrow because the third arrow isn't as drastic of a cross lane, because I always say you want to shoot cross lane at spares because it allows you to get the optimal deflection that you're looking for. But if you're firing really across the lane at spares and you're having to really contort your body a lot in relation to where you're used to bowling, it just opens up for more room of error. So I know we're at time already. I apologize for that really impromptu drawing, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff that for you guys, I think makes all the difference. And if you want to know what I went on here, if you just go on Google and look up Pixlr, Pixlr, there'll be a website that you can go on, the one I was just on, and you can draw stuff. And then if you go in another tab and look up bowling lane actual dimensions, that exact photo that I use is like the 7th thing that popped up. So you'll get that exact photo, and you'll just put that in that Pixlr thing. It's totally free. You don't have to sign up or anything. And you can draw on there. So if you ever want to like mess around and toy around, I can even like put that sort of stuff in the description. This is the stuff that's free and is extremely useful that you can just go on for 5 minutes and just say, okay, if I can flatten my hand, or I want to learn how to adjust to do certain things, or if you have a drift, or if you're trying to learn to, if you like to make X adjustment and you need to know if I want my ball to be, like let's say you want your ball to be down lane in the same spot and you move 2 boards left, you can draw out your normal line where you want it to go and then draw a line back to where if you move 2 boards left, and you can see where do I have to target at the arrows to get that ball to be in the same spot down lane that I wanted it to be before. So that's a good question. So the ball goes from 20 at the arrows, 15 feet, to the 5 board, aka 10 pins, 60 feet. Doesn't that mean the ball traveled 15 board left right over the 15? Let me think. So if the ball goes from 20 at the arrows, so the middle, 15 feet, to the boards, to 5 board, aka 10 pin, yes? Doesn't that mean the ball traveled 15 board left to right, 15 feet? Yes, it did. And that if you're looking at it from left to right, yes. Your bowling ball traveled a length of 45 feet from that arrow that it drew over at the 20th board, or 20th at the arrows, or 15 feet or whatever, down to the 60 foot, or past 60 foot. Because the 10 pin will be a little past 60 feet, because 60 feet is the measurement from the base of the head pin to there. So it'll probably be a handful more feet back, maybe like 2 or 3 more feet. So like 47 feet, something like that. You're within the realm, Mike. I'm trying to think, guys, because I feel like we covered everything I wanted to here. We answered a butt ton of questions, which is what I love. So I'll throw up an announcement here shortly about like scheduling and stuff moving forward. I know for the next week for sure, probably even the so divide that by 3 and it tells me how much travels over 15 feet. Yes, roughly. Give or take that extra foot or so, because that 10 pin's a couple feet behind the head pin. But yes, Mike. Given it's the holiday season, I know that the roads are bad. I know it's cold. I know all of you, hopefully Santa's bringing you some new bowling balls and new bowling equipment and new shoes and everything. I hope that, your Christmas trees are all stuffed with love as well as bowling equipment. I'm likely going to take the next couple of weeks off and just kind of enjoy the holidays with my family and stuff. But obviously, I'll still remain attentive to my email and still remain attentive to everything else during this off period. So if any of you have any questions, if you're still bowling and stuff in the holidays, shoot me a message, shoot me a video, shoot me anything you like, and I will happily review it, happily get back to you. I just obviously ask, as usual, that you guys just bear with me, because I know it's the holidays. I know everyone's just super duper busy. But I know New Year's is coming up, and I'll likely post an announcement. But I feel like I always say it, but I feel like I'll never say it enough, is that I'm very incredibly fortunate and thankful to have gotten to kind of ring in this end of this new year with all of you. I know that for some of you, I may just be some random coach on the internet, or for some of you, it may just be some person to have talk in the background on your Sundays. But I know that it goes a long way, and I hope that I've been able to help all of you. And I assure that my intentions are nothing but good, and I assure you that all of you, I will always try my best to be the best resource for each of you. I know that this is a free means of giving back, and I certainly could not have asked for a better opportunity to give back to all of you than what this YouTube platform has allowed me to provide. So again, thank all of you for your time. Thank all of you for a lovely new year. And I really, really hope all of you are learning to improve. I know I've gotten to hear back from a couple of you and see some honor scores. We've even had a guy shoot 300 last week. I won't say his name, but he sent me a video of him getting 300. So that was awesome. So just keep on keeping on, remain attentive, fire me messages, and obviously stay posted on the community and stuff, because I'll keep posting updates and stuff. I'll still probably put like quick Tuesdays up and stuff, 'cause that stuff's quick and easy. It's not a big ordeal. But just remain attentive, and I'll keep you guys posted on the new series coming out, as well as how that kind of timeline will look in relation to the 2 different series kind of living codependently here. So here, I'll answer these last couple questions and I'll sign off. But if you don't have any questions, you guys, I'm not going to cover anything outside from answering these questions we have here now. So let me go back. Let me see what it was. So we just divided that, divided by 3. So 5. Add that to my arrows line, tells me where the ball starts the foul line. Yes. 25. Add 5 for the ball to the angle. Yep, that's correct. This sounds crazy, but when I would love to have more drawings like this. Thanks. Yeah, tell you what, I could even, because I feel like the shorts are a good way for me to just, like, not have commentary and just post something. I could even, like, make, like, a collage, Debbie, if you want, where it's, like, you go into it and you can, like, swipe through different photos or tap or click through different photos, and it'll have different images. I could even draw out. Let me write this down, because I think that that was useful, what we just did there. Draw out lines for spares off of diff targets. So I can do something like that to kind of show you guys, you know, like if you throw the ball dead straight, you know, I'll have a perfect line. It won't be some junk like I drew up here. I'll have something like that so you guys can kind of see like what it looks like if you release the ball dead straight. But that's a good question. I will get something like that for you, Debbie. Gotta learn the math, bro. I can't be giving advice drawing squiggly. Gotta learn the math, bro. Can't be giving advice drawing squiggly lines on the computer. All right. Well, I will happily post that so you can actually see everything. I know, I mean, the math can be there, Mike, but I mean, I don't think me talking about the math gives people, because there's not a lot of people that learn off of math. We have more visual people. So that's why I like to try to draw stuff. But if you'd like me to do that, then I can do that. If you don't like the content, then just let me know what I can do better. So I appreciate it. Yes, I bowl a lot of long one. Yeah, so I can absolutely do that for you, Debbie. So, alrighty, everybody. Oh, I missed Dan. What's going on, Dan? I stand 31, look at 15. Third arrow for 10 pin. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everyone. Yep, there we go. So yeah, I know Dan's a third arrow guy, and it works best for him because he has a more speed-oriented approach. So that's a great analysis. Yeah, so I apologize, Mike, that you did not like my drawing skills. I will try to work on those over time. But I still think that visual is the best sort of teaching we can do. So we'll kind of just keep sticking with that moving forward. So again, everybody, I hope you enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas. This is a beautiful whole holiday season. And yeah, may Santa bring you guys not only equipment, but also some strikes. So if any of you guys have any questions, again, just let me know and I'll happily get back to all of you as soon as I can. And enjoy your holidays, enjoy your time off work or school if you have it. All right, guys, take care.